Oh, howdy y'all, grab yourself a drink, it's time for some PathOfExile discussion. With the Endless Delve event just a few days away, I've had a number of people ask what I would recommend playing in it. And my answer is always the same thing. There is a build that was so strong last time that it absolutely dominated the event, and it was hardly nerfed. So let's talk about the Ashes of the Sun Detonate Dead combo that was so dominant in the 2021 edition of Endless Delve, and look at why it's still really good now, and why it's probably actually the strongest build you can play no matter what ascendancy you want to play. Ashes of the Sun is a unique item that only exists in the Endless Delve event. Now, this is an item that has a few stats on it that are very hard to get. The key things here that we care about. Firstly, there's 25% increased burning damage. That's neither here nor there, but it's all upside. 30% chance to ignite means that we can start using this build reasonably early in progression, which is really good. We're going to want to use 2 copies of Ashes of the Sun early, and you can mule that across from another character. But then there's the killer, 500% increased ignite duration on enemies. What this does is it lets you inflict staggeringly long-lasting ignites that are 24 seconds instead of 4 seconds. This means that if you inflict an ignite on an enemy and then you can kite it around for a while, it's just going to drop dead. That is the starting point. Then we need to ask the question, how do we inflict these big ignites that are then going to last forever and a day? And that is through the use of Detonate Dead. Detonate Dead is a skill that's had a fair bit of use in the core game where Ashes of the Sun isn't available, but it's even better in the context of that item existing. This causes a corpse to explode, and it causes a fire AoE to explode at that point. Now, this damage doesn't intrinsically ignite, but we get a whole bunch of chance for it to ignite from the unique scepter. This deals a chunk of base fire damage, but then it also deals fire damage based upon the life of the corpse you explode. Now, if your gem level is 16 for Detonate Dead, this is going to be 7.5% of the corpse's life. If that corpse had 100,000 life, this is going to be 7,500 damage that you're adding just from this second line. That is a lot of base damage. That is more than a fireball level 20 with 2 supports would do. But what makes this enough to kill other monsters is that when it ignites monsters, this is then going to burn for 90% of that instant hit damage per second for 4 seconds. So that's going to be 3.6 times as much damage. Again, in the case we're talking about where you've got a 100,000 hit point monster, this is a 7,500 instant hit plus 27,000 damage over time. Still not enough to burn down another monster right next to it that's got the same hit points. But then this is scaled up by your character's stats. You can get fire damage over time multiplier, and you can get burning damage, elemental damage, fire damage, a whole bunch of stats like that that will increase the amount of damage that you're doing. Where you'll end up is your 100,000 hit point corpse that you explode will end up doing something like 100,000 damage per second to nearby enemies. And that's going to be extended for 24 seconds with 1 Ashes, or 44 seconds if you're using 2 copies of this unique item. So what sort of support gems do you want to attach to Detonate Dead here? You don't really care about duration modifiers, so you can even use Swift Affliction if you want, but you can use things like increased burning damage, Combustion support. You definitely want to have 1 Proliferation support in there though. Very early level you want to use Elemental Proliferation, but as soon as Ignite Proliferation comes online, you just want to swap over to Ignite Proliferation and never look back. How do you get the first corpse to explode? There's a few options you've got here. The way people did it last year, I'm not sure that this in fact was optimal, but it was what was being done to good effect last year, and that was to use Dynamite. Dynamite is a delve item that you'll get lots of if you want to. It deals quite a lot of damage if you invest into it. However, the way that I suggest you do this is to bring a corpse along with you. You can generate corpses through the skills Desecrate or Unearth, both of which will put a corpse down on the ground that you can then cause to explode. When that corpse explodes, that starts the chain reaction going, and then once a magic monster dies to it, detonate that thing's corpse, and then you'll be rolling well. You'll be doing a lot more damage after that point. I would go as far as to say that this build is so overpowered based upon its performance last year that even if you're wanting to play an ascendancy like the Gladiator that has no synergy with this build, that it's probably actually the strongest thing that you can do in this event. And if you're wanting to play an ascendancy that does have a synergy with Ignite, Elementalist or the Chieftain, this will definitely be the best thing that you can play. Anyways, hopefully that's something that gives you a bit of inspiration as to what you might want to play in this upcoming event. Of course, you can still play a traditional PoE build, but just be aware that a lot of traditional builds will find certain items very hard to source in the solo self-found environment. May your Vaal orbs have interesting results.